at 6:35.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. With that, Tori, I would like to turn it over to you for our mindfulness section, if you would.
Great. So for the next couple minutes, we're going to practice mindfulness before we get started. It's a tradition we have here with the Winooski School Board as we take a couple minutes to center ourselves, to remind ourselves of why we're here and what we're doing. So everybody just get a comfortable seat. You can close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Take a nice deep breath in. You'll feel your spine rise, and then breathe out for relaxation. Take a deep breath in and out. Another deep breath in and out. Just sort of settle into a nice breathing pattern. And tonight I'd like for us to breathe in and connect with our own basic human goodness. On the in-breath, and on the out-breath, I'd like you to share that out and connect with all people's basic human goodness. We all have the greatness within us, and when we can kind of connect to our own, then we can extend that out and connect to all people. Take a deep breath in and out. May we see each other with kindness and honor. May we extend kindness and great care to ourselves and to all people. May we remember that we're here to govern for the highest good of our community, for our students and our families of Winooski. And you can take one more deep breath in, and we'll come back into the room for governing.
Okay, Mike.
Okay, very good. Agenda review and adjustments. I had just one add. If we could, I'd like to, for the executive session, add section for negotiations update. Sean and Matt will take the board through where we are. Add that. Appreciate it. Any other agenda review items or adjustments?
Adjustments to the agenda? Nope.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Section 3 here, public comments. I understand we have several folks in the room, and I apologize that I can't see you. So, Sean, if I could turn it to you to move through
Yep.
public comments.
Yep. Tori's gonna lead that section of the agenda.
So we will now take public comments. So if someone has public comments, we can take turns up here at the microphone for public comments. And you can introduce yourself and let us know who you are.
I'm Infinite, co-pleasure, Currency Change, again, and we've been, paying attention to the transportation, in particular, the attendance and tardy data, and so we finally got the data for 2015-16, and we were able to compare it a little bit to 2014-15. We couldn't compare them apples to apples because we had all of the absences and tardy data from the 2015-16, but from the prior year, we only had absences for students who missed 20 or more days. So what we learned was in the year 2013-14, or I'm sorry, 14-15, 108 young people missed 20 or more days, and that's K through 12. and then the 2015-16, that went up to 124. And also consistent is kindergartners are still missing more days than anyone else in the school. That's really all we have. The only other question we have for the board is if there are any opportunities for families to participate in building of the budget this year, and when those opportunities are, and how we families can get involved in that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Lydia.
Hello, everyone. I'm sure a majority of you know me. I'm Lydia Bourgeois Mungeon. I went to school here, graduated from here, and I currently have 3 kids that go here. I'm here with some concerns as a parent. So I'm going to start off with those. And I'll go right into the tardiness. Standing in line when 5 minutes late for school is infuriating to me because I end up standing in line for almost 15 minutes. Why did we change the system to begin with? With my oldest being in 7th, I've never ever stood in line as long as I have this school year for getting to school at 8:04. There is no need to take 15 minutes to get a pink slip. So many parents have complained about this, but until I experienced myself on the day my sister was being induced at the hospital, I was appalled. Not only did I stand in line, but then was rudely talked to when I finally got sick of listening to her catch up with the parents in front of me. We all have places to be, and to go for that matter, but making us stand in line that long for a pink slip is absurd. I am wondering what we do about that and how we get more accurate data because I was not 20 minutes late with my daughter for school, but that's what it says in, the data. Moving on, Chromebooks. I paid a deposit for both my kids to have this tool, and now they cannot bring it home. Why do I have to pay a deposit if it doesn't leave school? Why do my kids feel stressed to the max about picking their Chromebooks up for 8 a.m. in the morning? Not only did my student not break or damage his Chromebook, he took care of it. So for him and others like him to be punished because some kids didn't take care of theirs really stinks. I constantly feel like my kids are getting the short end of the stick because they are lumped together with children who ruin it for all. How can we get these Chromebooks back in the hands of the kids who need them and take care of them? Now, before I go into my next topic, I want everybody to know that while I was in school here, we had an influx of Vietnamese, Bosnian, and Serbian immigrants. Some were my friends. I played a lot of sports with a lot of them. I graduated with them. I still know them. I learned from them, and even to this day, my children have so many friends of all different nationalities and color that I'm proud of that. And I love that my kids know a lot about different cultures. So please do not mistake this for anything more than, I guess, confusion on the topic here and why so many of us parents see it as lopsided. How come we can't do costumes, but other religious groups can come with stuff on their face every day while celebrating a cultural event? Why are some holidays acknowledged yet others are not? Why we can't celebrate holidays or have a holiday concert, but this seems to fall under the religious umbrella. While at this winter performance, we are singing all kinds of songs about Africa, waving flags, just to name a few, also celebrating all of our different cultures between songs, which is amazing, but we're a culture too. And I feel we're left behind in this quest to make everyone happy. Therefore, why are others allowed to celebrate throughout the school year, like religious garments worn daily or leaving class to pray, but we can't talk about some of our very traditional holidays? Now it's winter break and there's no more Easter break, which is fine, but you're trying to make everything fair for everyone, but it isn't fair for some. Now my concern is why we have caved to such pressure and became religious neutral, but not really. Telling parents that we can't buy things for our children at the beginning of the school year is because others can't afford it was infuriating to me. And I know Sarah Robb heard about it. I do not agree with that. I do not think that if I want to buy my child a pencil box, that I need to buy every child a pencil box. Because I choose to work hard and to spend my money on my children, and I don't think that I should be punished for that. And I actually give a lot to each of my classrooms, and I do a lot for this school. So just take it as, why? I understand that, you know, we want to stop one-upmanship and all that stuff, but they're pencils. And if she's in 3rd grade and wants pencils, why can't she just have heart pencils? My other topic is, how do some kids not go to class at all during the day, every day, and still get to move ahead in school to the next grade? My kids go to school every day and attend class, and they get to move ahead in school with peers who do 1/8 of the work. And you can tell me that I don't know that, and you guys can't talk about it, but we notice as parents. And I'm very concerned about the future of those children. Now, one of my sons has an IEP and gets extra help. He has speech problems and some learning disabilities, and he does get extra tutoring and has extra services in the school. But he goes to school and works hard and isn't allowed to leave class when it gets too hard. He isn't allowed to act any other way than how he does act, because that is expected of him. He cannot go on the playground because reading's really hard. He has to stick it out. The focus seems to be so much on community and unity and making sure no one's feelings are hurt, instead of focusing on the fact that we are given a 1 out of 10 on the great school rating. We are failing our kids by letting them use crutches as excuses to get through the day at school. I know children are traumatized, and some of these kids have had horrible lives, but my kids don't have horrible lives, and they are getting the raw end of the stick. And we won't even talk about how my son was traumatized by a child who still goes here. He has to see every day and has to obey the rules still and is held to a certain standard. Nothing changed at school for Hayden, except how scared he was to go to school. I brought him to therapy. I was up at night holding him while he cried. I was the one talking him into going to school every day. But he doesn't get to walk the halls when the classroom gets too hard or he sees his predator. And I didn't get to check out, and neither did he. He had to push through because it was expected of him. Speaking of other horrible things happening, it brings me to my next point, bullying. When my father was on this school board, y'all made a bullying policy, and that policy has yet to appear in anything that has happened in my experience. Not only has Hayden been bullied on school grounds and given a concussion at recess, many other students I know have had similar experience where nothing comes of it, or it's trying to talk me off of a ledge about the policy and procedures regarding this issue. You all have a responsibility to make sure our kids feel safe here, and I as a parent shouldn't be chewing my nails, dropping my kids off at school. The first and foremost sentence in the mission statement is to keep these children safe no matter what. And I can honestly say that hasn't happened in my experience. When a parent of a child who's bullied my son for years comes into school and physically shoves him at the lockers, after months of complaining about this child throwing furniture and bullying my kid, I was at my wit's end with this school, and I'll be honest, I did try to send them somewhere else. But unfortunately, I couldn't afford private school. So here I am, in front of y'all, letting you know that I'm by far the only parent that is concerned about this stuff. But these points in particular hit home for me. I know you will tell me to circle back and talk to Sean, and possibly even Sarah too, but I wanted y'all to hear it. Because something needs to change, and we need to start talking about it now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Any other public comment?
Okay.
All right. I'd like to then move to the consent agenda. I would accept the motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, I had a couple of items here, and I just want to make a sound check here just to make sure you can still hear me.
Yep.
Okay, under the minutes, under section 4, public comments, I just want to, and I think, though it was a little bit hard to hear, there was a little more detail on the data, but there's a sentence right in the middle that says the data is showing absences and tardiness due to transportation challenge. From the data that we saw at this meeting, I believe that sentence in the minutes does not belong. So it may be clarified based on the public comments we may have just heard. Again, I did not hear them as well as I probably should have. So I'd like to take that one sentence out. And then if I go down to, I'm going to leave the second one. The second one is fine. Any other comments or updates?
Okay.
I got it.
Mike, just a clarification. Are you trying to amend that because you disagree or because you think that's not what got said?
Well, from the last meeting, the issue was brought forward as transportation. There was absence and tardiness data presented, but it wasn't absence and tardy data tied to transportation challenges. It was absence data, yes, and it was transportation challenges, yes, but the data that was presented was not data showing absences and tardiness due to the transportation issues themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, though I would say that it was implied and that, the question was raised, are these two things linked? And so I think it's fair to leave in the minutes, the question of, might some of these tardiness and absences be linked to transportation? There wasn't a causal link in any of the data, but I think there was the question and the suggestion, and I think it's legit to ask the question and then figure it out. So I wouldn't mind having an amended version of that in. So, they didn't say that the data proved anything, but that the question was raised, if you'd be okay with that.
Yeah, no, that would be fine. It suggests that the data that was presented at the meeting showed a causal relationship to transportation travel challenges, and I'm not convinced that was the case. But your update, if you can work with Sean, would work for me.
Does that work?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we can work
They
on
were
that.
they were both
yeah,
presented,
yeah.
but the causal nature not.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
great. Thank you, Mike.
Was there anything else in the consent agenda that anybody had any need updates or questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda with the one statement update? Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. With that, then, we will move down to the Healthy Lives Forum. Did we have all our guests?
We do.
All right. And was Kate Newton able to make it?
She
had a meeting
is.
Till 6:30. All right.
She's here.
All right. And so at this point, Julian, as we discussed, because I don't have any access to visual clues, if you could carry the conversation, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So I'd like to invite all you health and wellness folks to the table, if you would. And we can have our discussion. Do we have enough chairs? Let's see. 1, 2, 3,
Should.
4, 5, 6, 7.
Do we have enough?
Yeah, we should be good.
Perfect. Hi, how are you? Good. Have a seat. Yes. Join us.
Yeah, I kind of realized that. Like, there's. Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Anywhere?
Anywhere? Come on.
That's good.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is another in a series of conversations that we've been having about our ends statement. And so the Winooski School ends statement says that we are trying to produce students who are college and career ready, who will lead healthy, productive, and successful lives, and who will be globally and locally connected at a cost supported by the community. It's not exactly the right order, but I think those are all the elements that we put in there. And so we had a conversation with colleges about what it would mean to be college ready. We had a conversation with employers about what it would mean for students to be career ready. We've had conversations with folks from all over the world about what it means to be globally connected and why it's important for our students and for us. We had a conversation about local connections, and this is our conversation on health. So we are hoping that our students will walk out of here ready to lead healthy, successful, and productive lives, which I think is a nice segue, partly from what Lydia said. You know, safety and security, of course, is a basic need that we all share, and the kids do as well. And there are other needs, of course. And so that's where this kind of wellness and health conversation comes in. And we all have a bunch of questions for you. Oh, and the way that this works, by the way, is after we gather your input, our very excellent superintendent goes back and drafts an interpretation of what he thinks we mean by these things that we've said in our end statement. And then he brings it back to us, and then we sort of look at that and we amend as necessary. And then that interpretation that he provides to us also is fitted with measurements to see if we are achieving the things that we're hoping to achieve in each of these categories. And that's how we know, ultimately, as a board, whether or not we are succeeding as a school at the end of the year, in addition to the more traditional and standard measurements that we all know and love from school. So before we get started, I would love for you to just do a quick go-round and for you to introduce yourselves. And if you could just tell us, we can read your names, but go ahead and say them anyway, because I'm not sure everybody on TV here can see them. So just go ahead and say your name and where you're from, and just one sentence about why you thought this was an intriguing discussion to attend. And I'll give you just 10 seconds to think about your answer before I ask you guys to respond. How long can a group be silent is always a challenge. I relish. Jerry, can we start with you?
Sure. I'm Jerry Ford. I'm the CEO of Marathon Health, and we are a health and wellness company that serves employers, school districts, and municipalities around the nation with a focus on health and wellness and all aspects of living a healthy life. I thought it'd be very interesting to come here because we've worked in conjunction with JC and with Sean and great members of the school here to bring some services to the district and allow us to work with some of the children and show them some different things and different avenues to exploring their health and wellness.
Great, thanks.
My name's Andrea Green. I'm a pediatrician at the University of Vermont Medical Center's Pediatric Primary Care Practice. And I am the director of the Pediatric New American Clinic, so all my patients are New Americans, and I've worked in this job for 10 years. Taking care of New American children. And I was really happy to be part of this conversation because so much of taking care of children happens outside an office. And in taking care of children, it's really important to me that, I went into pediatrics because I love children and the idea of developing children into healthy adults. I didn't want to do adult care. I don't enjoy trying to talk people out of bad habits. So, this is a beautiful time to really grow children, and I think we're moving in pediatrics to understanding that health is much more than the physical health, that we really need to be talking sort of from an anticipatory guidance vein about the emotional health and wellness of children. And in our clinic, where so many of the children that I take care of have experienced trauma in one form or another, or their parents have, we're really working very hard to build resilience. And I think that lends itself well to this conversation.
Thanks. Thank you.
Me? Oh, hey. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Dotson, and I am the CEO of the Greater Burlington YMCA. And I'm not going to assume that that's clear that we are in the business writ large of health and wellness in lots of different ways. We have a big presence in early childhood care, which we think is about health and wellness, getting young children from the very start. We have an infant toddler program off to a healthy start, and we have a lot of school-age programs, after-school camps, etc. And we also have a significant health and fitness workout sort of wellness component. We actually have a facility here in Winooski on Mallets Bay Ave that's dedicated to that. So it's my business, and more, I would say that my belief about all of us as human beings is that given the right environment, the right support, the right education, we generally make choices that are beneficial to us when having the right circumstances, and it strikes me there's lots of people who don't have those circumstances that provide a support to make those kind of decisions. So I'm always eager to come together with other interested parties about how we can help support those of our peers and neighbors who don't have those supports, who don't have access to the education, or don't have access to the means, whether it's through fitness or nutrition or mind and spirit wellness, to gain access to those things. So I thought maybe this conversation would be something that would be covering some of that ground.
Great.
Okay, so JC Putlitz, I'm the wellness coordinator for the school district, and wellness is multifaceted. It's not just the physical and social emotional. There's also, once a student graduates, they learn that other aspects of their lives impact their happiness, whether it's financial or if they're happy in their job or if they're just generally feeling connected with other people. And because it's such a multifaceted topic, it's really hard to discuss what wellness is or what it means to one person. It's so individual. So I'm really happy that this forum is happening, or we're talking about it, because once a student graduates and we kind of set them free into the world, they may realize, wow, I really should have listened in health class, or I really should have taken more interest in that desire to run. I mean, there's just so many things that we set in motion now that could benefit them for years. And I also think it's important to have this conversation because healthcare costs continue to rise. And if our students don't take responsibility for themselves as individuals, that can snowball into an effect that, costs our whole, community and the government lots of money. So I feel that wellness is one of those things that we have the ability to teach them how to take care of themselves and how to make these decisions that benefits everyone in the long run.
I'm Kate Nugent, and I'm the executive director of the Winooski Coalition. And I'm interested in this conversation because our work is really geared towards creating an environment that makes it easier to be healthy, and looking at the individual not only as someone making individual choices, but who is influenced by so many other factors. And I think that it's really important to keep that in mind when you're looking at the community and where the student's going to school and what they're exposed to on a daily basis. And I have lots more to share, but I think that's a good intro for now.
I'm Tom Bodwin. I'm the school liaison from the Department of Health from the smaller office that serves Chittenden County. So I work on a team with other people who are in substance abuse prevention, chronic disease prevention, and things like that. So I see myself kind of as a representative of our school health team. And I'm interested in being here mostly because, like JC and almost everybody else said, it seems like to answer the questions that were mentioned in the agenda, that it's going to be a collaborative approach, but also because I do know a lot about what's already going on in Winooski, whether it's at the district or at the coalition level, and I'm very interested in evaluation and figuring out how we can measure what's already being done and see how good that is in actual tangible data.
Great. Well, thanks for taking time out of your personal professional time to be here with us. We really appreciate it. I thought if it's all right with you all, my colleagues here, we could start with some questions about opportunities and challenges around looking at wellness issues in the school setting. So we're a pre-K through 12 district, which gives us a broad range of ages. And Andrea and JC, you guys mentioned habits and preferring to work with young folks before bad habits get started rather than later. And so I just wonder if we could go around and if you have thoughts on if there are unique opportunities and unique challenges that the school setting presents with regards to wellness. And also, JC, you'd mentioned it's hard to define wellness. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You mentioned emotional wellness, you mentioned happiness. I'm sure you guys all have different perspectives on that stuff. So maybe just a couple words about the kinds of dimensions that we need to be thinking of. We think in terms of nutrition, we think in terms of physical health and so forth in the school so far, but we'd love to get a kind of broader, more sophisticated understanding of what wellness means for kids. So, recapping this massive question I just asked you to answer, kind of unique opportunities and challenges of looking at wellness in schools, and then various dimensions of health and wellness you guys think we need to be taken into consideration as we think about this stuff. And anybody can jump in there.
I'll start.
Go for it, Jake.
I went first last time, so this is the last time I'll go first.
Sure.
Part of the definition JC and Dr. Green were both referring to it is looking at, you can call it the blue zone. You can say 4 pillars of health. You can say 5 pillars of health. You can say 6 pillars of health. There's a lot of different definitions. But when you look at a school-age population, one of the things when we deal with school districts around the country is, one of the things that really resonated for me is living life with purpose and breaking it into zones that could be around physical health or physical fitness in combination, mental or brain fitness, if you will, dining experience or nutritional aspects, and then social aspects and spiritual aspects. And when you look at that, the measurements and what you can really get after with a school-age population is, it's very important when you're trying to work with them and set measures and try to determine healthy habits and other things, that you also take into consideration your staff and your individuals that are dealing with them on a daily basis. So one of the things that, when it becomes very important when you look at something like this, in our opinion, is to look at it collaboratively. You want to make sure that there's role modeling going on, that there's the right behaviors. When you're looking at all aspects, so if you pick a 4 zone or a 5 zone, whatever the pillars that you want to operate off of, it's very important that you reflect. Just so outstanding that Tori led a mindfulness start at the beginning of your session. Highly encourage mindfulness, appreciative inquiry, motivational interviewing, getting at whether or not someone is ready and where they're at in their ability or looking at what they want to change, as opposed to just being directive. If you're directive, which can tend to be an issue in school districts, there's education that goes on. We have to remember we have to listen and meet them where they are, as much as being directive, to institute and make sure you're establishing behavioral patterns that will lead towards long-term sustainable change, as opposed to just being done because you're being directed to do it.
And that sometimes gets called a value-driven life, which is hard when you're in kindergarten to figure out. But it's sort of what you might be trying to explore as kids get older. And I often think, and we're actually talking about it in doing a child care pairing project, but talking about really going back to teaching people how to name their emotions and how to manage their feelings as a place to start in kindergarten. Because I think modeling, which is what you're talking about, and having all of the staff working on this, children learn more from watching what other people do than what people say. And so we have to model in the way we set example of how to do this. And some kids grow up in families where their parents have really good modeling of helping them to understand what they're feeling. But you need to know what you're feeling and know how to name it almost before you can start to learn. And so if you're going to talk about working in a school where you have to be able to work with others, you need to know what you're feeling, and you need to understand what the other person is feeling, and you need to be able to work that through. And so that's almost, to me, the foundation, and I think we used to teach that to kids. And now we're working so much on academics that we sometimes forget to teach them how to play together in the sandbox. And then you can build on that as kids get older and they have the ability to understand things in new and different ways, to really develop their values and to understand what they want and what's motivating them. But when we talk about motivational interviewing or anything that we're doing more of, you invite the child to say, can we talk about this? And just by inviting that child, whether it be to examine parts of their body so that they learn to know that they have control over that body and people can't touch them in places they don't want to be touched, or whether you invite them to talk about what they're feeling and help them to solve that through, or you invite them to understand why not watching TV for an hour before bed's really important and sleep's really important. Whatever skill you're trying to teach them, you can invite children at all ages to it as well.
And using that motivational interview, trans-theoretical model of change from Petraska, you're assessing, are they pre-contemplative, are they contemplative, Are they ready to take an action or not? And you meet them where they are so you don't jump ahead of the curve. If you move too quickly, too fast, you will lose them. So you work with each individual on that assessment of where they are in that stages so you can help them along their path.
So you might have some established ideas about what you're hoping kids get out of a wellness program, but you're recommending against having it be sort of one size fits all, start here and there, kind of thing. By the time you're 7, you should be doing this. By the time you're 9, you should be doing that. What do you think, Sean?
Well, I feel like you've isolated the challenge that we feel in the school system really quickly, which is trying to meet kids where they are, and we have a significant number of students here, but also the number of students that are coming in with less of a foundation than your typical kid is on the rise. From what I hear from my colleagues and see the data around the state and even nationally. And so from a school district perspective, what you can control and what you can influence are off, there's a big gap there. And then we end up with that challenge of differentiating, particularly for a classroom teacher, coming into a class of 18 to 20 kids or so, and you have students on a really broad continuum of that foundation when they come into the room. And then public opinion, when you try to personalize and differentiate, when you have a lot of the public, which parents and community members who grew up in a very different system, creates a tension there. So try as a system for us to create the system without any data yet for our kids to support it and convince the community that this works is a challenge.
So in one way I would phrase it as well is in a school setting, the challenge for wellness is that, a student comes in from school, whether they're ready to learn due to things going on at home or not, or they come to school with a bag of chips or something. Every time they come to school, they've already had like this unlearning happen for the last 12 to 18 hours. And they come to school and we have to kind of reset with them. Okay, here's your nutritious breakfast. Here's how you work with your friends. Here's how, we're going to have recess and you're going to behave on their recess playground. But then they go home and not every child is going to have the same nurturing at home and same message around health and wellness. You can say, yes, I know this child knows math because we can assess that. Yes, I know this child is on this scale for reading. But when it comes to wellness, there is no scale, and it's so individualized. Every single child is different, and every time they come to school, the expectation at school has to be relearned over and over and over again every time. So
those are some of the challenges.
that is probably the biggest challenge, is that in terms of making sure that a child is well, is, we have, 850 students, and that's 850 different wellness plans.
Right.
In a sense, if you think about it. I don't know how. That's all I had to say about that.
What do you think, Rainbow?
Hi, I'm Rainbow. I'm the student rep. I'm a senior here, and I just want to add on, when JC, I see you every single day when I walk into school, and I go to breakfast lines every now and then to get some breakfast, and a lot of things that's also related to wellness is also during that period of time in which we are off learning. There are many situations at home that could either relate to many different factors, but at the end of the day, another huge factor to wellness is sleep as well. And sleep is, as you may all have probably heard, is a big issue for our generation, in the fact that we do not get enough sleep, and that's just a thing in our society where some people end up prioritizing, such as the higher grades, they prioritize their grades over their own health, or in lower grades. I was mentoring a kindergartner last year, and she looked exhausted when I was mentoring her at 9 a.m. And I asked her how much sleep she had. She told me she had 7-8 hours of sleep, and she's 5 years old. And it makes me think, the fact that sleep is affecting her behavior and how she attends school and is attentive to school. Like, students fall asleep in class every now and then, and it's a common habit. And I mean, adults can't necessarily force them to stay awake because we can. And I mean, aside from sleep, also, like Sean mentioned earlier, with food eating habits, a lot of students heavily rely on our food programs here at school, and I'd have to argue against our proportions of food as you get older as well. I'm sure you've probably heard that as well. So my two main issues as a student and observing what I've seen is sleep and food, like physical aspects anyway.
So if I could, for the sleep part, I can't really answer that, but for the food part, one challenge would be that because we do have universal meals, we have to adhere to certain rules. And I agree with you that I think that for many of our adolescents and teens, they require more calories than we're allowed to give them as a part of the Healthy Meals Act. You know, that can be a challenge. We have lots of students looking for food at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And many of them are, you know, boys who are going from 5 to 6 foot in a matter of 2 years. The amount of calories needed for that is more than what we're allowed to give them in a school day. And do we know if they're getting that proper nutrition at home? Maybe, maybe not. And my guess is no, because they're coming to us looking for as much chocolate milk as they can put into their bodies. So that is a challenge. Thank you for bringing that up, Rainbow.
And I imagine that the nutrition thing is as individualized, or should be as individualized as the other aspects that you mentioned. But if you have a uniform sort of requirement, it makes it hard to customize.
In the entire country, we have an obesity problem. In this school, I would say that's not true. You know?
So can I comment on that, actually? Because I think the issue of food insecurity is really difficult to understand, and there's food insecurity and very low food insecurity. So when you're food insecure, what it really means is that you do not have a variety of foods and you don't meet your nutritional requirements, but you're getting food. When you're very food insecure, it means you're going hungry. So actually, an awful lot of the obesity epidemic in this country is with people who are food insecure. And so there is this idea that if you're hungry, you're skinny because you're not getting enough to eat, but that's not accurate. Just to sort of clarify that, because it is a difficult thing to understand that part of the obesity issues is often people who don't have enough money to last the month, and then they're eating a lot of chips or a lot of really inexpensive, unnutritious calories.
And I think if I can clarify my point, the guidelines
No,
are
I understand
written.
you've got
Yes.
good healthy foods, but a limited amount.
Exactly, but here,
But just sort of to the,
not only do they need more food, but they need nutritious food, which I think we're doing a really good job with that. We have a lot of fresh produce in the school, thanks to the Nutrition Act. We just don't have enough food.
All right, well, I want to make sure our other three guests get in here with perspectives on opportunities, challenges, and dimensions of wellness.
Yeah,
Go for it.
well, first, I feel like it's really amazing that the school board's having this conversation, and even though there's still struggles, the fact that Winooski named itself as a welcoming community, and you know, that you're doing mindfulness, I think that's incredible and should be celebrated, and I'm just really proud to be working in a community like that, especially today.
Because it's Wednesday?
Yeah. Wednesdays are already
Hump day.
Wednesdays are hard days.
And I guess I'd love to offer just some resources for the school board to use this seems like a huge task, you know, to like define wellness and figure out how to assess it. And then when I was thinking of I think it was Mike that said, how do you assess it after graduation even? That's amazing. And I think in terms of like, what do students need? So like what to put into them, I think of the 40 developmental assets, or like the Search Institute, which talks about like, you know, I'm sure you've all aware of that, but like emotional health, and it's pretty concrete. So I feel like that would be a good resource to look at. You know, it gets as specific as like, can differentiate your own emotions from other people's emotions. And in terms of like assessing that or things like that, I also teach a class at CCV and have always enjoyed working with kids. So in what I do in my class is I make teamwork part of the grade. So I formally say this is 20% of your grade, and I have some leeway because of just the framework of it, and I don't know what leeway people have in the school, but I say, and I define this pretty succinctly. Like, do you offer help to your classmates when they need it? Do you address the ideas that people are putting forth and not the person? And are you listening? Are you respectful in the class? And are you making sure that we're all doing that? And then I was thinking, like, another huge thing is modeling. Like, are we asking ourselves, am I doing this in my class? I try to ask myself that every time. Like, am I valuing everybody's opinions and not looking at who they are or how the message is being delivered? Am I looking at the message? And so I think those are some things. I guess also like having students involved meaningfully, which the school is doing already, which is phenomenal. I mean, that is, and it's not tokenism. I feel like it's like affecting the decisions that are made. So that's huge. And I don't know leeway in terms of like how you assess your students, but contribution-focused assessments rather than ranking. So like build it into how we evaluate the students. Are they participating with each other? Are they building things together? And not telling them to work together, but actually evaluating them that way so that we put our money where our mouth is. And I guess like in terms of like our specific, the specific focus that we have, but obviously it impacts everything else. Making sure that students have an opportunity to address the things that are going on in their school, that we celebrate failure. And that's really hard. I'm not saying that I even do that, but like, how can we build that into their curriculum? Like that's awesome that you failed because that means you have a stopping point and you can go forward.
And you would relate that to wellness because of sort of the resilience piece that someone else mentioned earlier and being able to sort of bounce back from a hard time?
Yeah, because, substance abuse, all these problems are all linked to the same issues, like social skill development, resilience, feeling part of a community. And I think that each one of us can do our part. The fact that, JC's there welcoming students or just being a voice for inclusiveness is huge. And I guess, from our standpoint, I would love to see specific content available, different developmental stages. I know when I went through school, like, DARE did not work. I think we all know that it failed pretty badly. But now I think 30 years of research have happened, and I think those of us who experienced DARE are catching up to that now. But it's pretty powerful in giving students the information themselves to make decisions instead of like trying to scare them, but making sure that they at least have the opportunity to know what's out there and what it could do. And also, I guess one huge thing is media literacy. Can you sort out the messages that are being thrown at you? And do you know that like not all the messages are for your own benefit, that actually some of them are just to make money.
And if I can interject, there's a curriculum called health literacy that there's a variety of them that are done for adolescents. They're specifically around sort of understanding health messages as it related to what you find on the internet or in the media, and how you make an appointment and how you know your family history and how you kind of learn to go off and be an independent person managing your health in the healthcare system.
Did you call it health literacy?
Health literacy is what I'm saying. It's actually thought to be one of the most important things in creating equity in health.
Well, it's interesting because it reminds me a little bit of the sort of the GXs, our graduate expectations, in the sense that it's sort of about core skills that you can apply in a lot of different places, and that sort of links in with our critical thinking piece and persistence,
well-being,
in terms of resilience. Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to hear about the individual needs of students in wellness and how complicated wellness of an individual a person can be. But I do want to bring it back to the policy level, which is something that I do more work in. And policy definitely doesn't always address the individual needs of the students, whether it's mindfulness or their nutrition status or anything like that. but it does touch on all of those things. And I just wanted to make a plug for, generally the school wellness policy involves physical activity and nutrition and kind of ends there. And since you are the school board, it might be worth looking into to broaden that and make it a little bit more robust and involve things like mindfulness that's already being done, and involve things like individual plans for students, and even making a call for the regular and meaningful and sustainable conversation, kind of like what's happening now, but within the school buildings, just so that people can more easily identify those individual needs that everybody's been talking about.
Striking our policy chord, man.
I know, right? We had a great conversation about our policy on whole child and school wellness. Yeah.
Did you notice the change in the title that we?
The title, we
Okay.
changed it, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
great.
called Policy on Whole Child and School Wellness.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and you get into measurable aspects as well, right? And let me just take it up a little bit in terms of working with employers. You know, there are specific measures, you know, health outcomes, prevalence rates by condition. There's all hard measures that you can do. But what a lot of people get into is measurement of participation. So, did somebody participate in X, Y, or Z? You can look at other measurements, you know, tardiness, absenteeism. You know, those can be hard measurables that you can look at. What you also could have as barometers is academic achievement, participation in athletic activities. Again, all activities that are participation based. But if you really want to push the bar, what a lot of people are going towards now is they're moving towards outcomes. And you can actually take outcomes down a level to personify it and say, you know, can you set one goal and put the ownership on the individual student to do it? It might become a little bit of an administrative nightmare otherwise, but each student has to set a wellness goal for a month, and it's a really achievable, you know, PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act, rapid cycle improvement. It might be I will do in log or journal 10 sit-ups a day, or walking half a mile, whatever it might be, or I will plan to do this by the end of a month. And what a lot of employers now are doing is tying the setting of a goal and the achievement of a goal to some sort of an incentive. And we actually developed a program called Healthy Like Me. And one of your things was, how do you track students after they're gone from here, and were they successful? Healthy Like Me was a program we developed for employers that allows individuals to tell their own story. And their story gets published on a website, you know, what they did, their own journey. They can blog about it, they can record, and then they become an active participant. Instead of being guided or directed, they're an active participant. And you can open assemblies or stories with honoring 10 people to tell their story. And it feeds off of that and can build more, because everybody's trying to be healthy like me. And whatever their goal was or whatever they did to achieve that, other people can try and join that and want to be honored and recognized in that way, as opposed to just, you know, the kid that scored 20 points or the person who made the high honors or whatever it might be otherwise.
And what are our focus of learnings? Didn't we experience that there was that cycle of setting the goals? Didn't Sue Messier do that? Yeah, that's an interesting. That's great.
Kyle, you got perspectives inside and out of a school, and your new position. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. So I was thinking one place that I think offers incredible opportunities and offers some challenges. It feels it's an effort on my part to sort of get at root cause analyses, and I want to say up front, maybe a little background. In a prior part of my career, I was a principal of an early childhood and elementary school in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Boston's arguably one of its most challenged neighborhoods. I very much can understand, empathize, appreciate what Winooski's doing here. And I want to applaud everyone here, inside and outside the school, for the work you guys are doing in this community. It's really, I think, impressive. And so when you're dealing, particularly when you're dealing in a community that's facing a share of challenges, the work is Herculean, and the place to start, and I think this gets into the challenge sometimes of feeling like sort of blaming, or perhaps we're putting too much burden on one particular group. But for me, it's really more about the opportunity, and the opportunity is what you have with teachers, right? So they have kids all day. And this for me was about in all humility. So I went down there and I tried to be clear with people. I was in Vermont. I was working at St. Michael's College. And I went down to do this principal training program, become a principal. And it was, by far, there's not even a close second, the most humbling experience in my life. So I think that humility about what our tendencies are as human beings and what can easily happen if you can get to an objective place, that teachers being a group of adults, if teachers are working through their stuff, which they probably are because they're humans, it really compromises your ability to help the students work through their stuff, depending on how in touch you are with your own stuff and how much you're getting fed and how much your wellness, what place it's in. I think it's easy in the hurly-burly of the work to do what Andrea said, which is do as I say, not as I do, and be doing something that's completely contrary to what you are saying, and then wondering why you're not getting anywhere. So I think at the leadership level, figuring out the space, how you build in the space and time to support those professionals, those adults, to do their work, so that they're in the best place possible around their own wellness, so that they can model, they can get out of the way, they can not get in the dance, right? So you're in there with the students easy, and some of these students are masters at pulling you into the dance, but as soon as you're dancing, it's over. And they know it. They're better than us oftentimes, because that's unfortunate. That's their life. That's the best thing they got going for. They're like, I can get anybody to dance, and without any sort of total consciousness about what they're doing, they're really good at pulling you in. Yeah, I got 3 of my own, so that's like one of those things that it's really easy to say that and not to stop thinking about, like, that's a pretty big deal. Like this isn't something to be kind of glossed over. It is huge. Like anybody here who's married and you got kids and you got relationships in your life, you're working through your stuff. You didn't hide it when you went in the classroom. Like maybe you thought you did, but the kids see it better than anyone. Maybe your therapist. So the more you're doing to get at that stuff, and the power of that as a community of concerned adults, if you really care, if you really have developed that sense of a collective sense about what you're trying to do for children and families, and then you can turn the lens on yourself and do that personal work, I think that's an incredible opportunity. It's a challenge. And when I come here, some people know, Sean, I've dealt with a lot. I'm in the education space. I got a lot of opinions, but it's because I saw something, not because I know everything. But Boston created an incredible opportunity, one of the most progressive areas for education in the country. Everything's there. Lots of Catholic, lots of independent, pilot, charter, and within that, and district up to wazoo, and in there are pockets of brilliance. And so mine was a high-profile situation where I got to see a lot of stuff, and I saw people like us. They had the same constraints. There was nothing different than us other than they figured it out. And they were working miracles for children and families. It wasn't happening everywhere, but it was happening in places. And when you see it, it's just like, it's something to behold. And so it's doable. And they didn't, no special anything. They created over time special stuff, but nobody gave it to them and said, here's, $1 billion. So that made me see, wow, it's doable. A group of human beings can choose to do this. So that's one thing. And then, per Julian's question, school, captive audience, right? It creates an opportunity. If you do that community setting, there's a lot of things. I'm a big fan of figuring out how you have some kind of community meeting. Monday morning, Friday afternoon, but something where you come together. As a community, invite parents in. You're in there. This is where we come together and talk about who we are as the whatever it is that we are, And you can bring all sorts of things in there. It's a wonderful opportunity for multiculturalism. Right? There's a lot of traditions from other cultures, African cultures, Vietnamese cultures, native cultures, that you can integrate in really less contrived ways. Sometimes like this contrivance, let's, overlay this custom. It doesn't feel right, but in those ways, because in those cultures, there's something about bringing community together, and then you just kind of borrow it and have it. I think it can be more organically become part of what you do about how we connect. And so I think, and then you talk about who we are. You talk about your wellness. You talk about how we treat each other. You talk about how we treat our bodies. I think that can create a really powerful vehicle. And then, last one is I think that we get so caught up and we just don't often figure out how to leverage sports. Right? A lot of hand-wringing and jock culture, all of it true. But what we're not going to change is there's something powerful that goes on there, right? The Cubs. Like you could do all sorts of things and other, sort of venues to try to work up that kind of foment and passion. And, good luck to you. And, it's right there for you. How do you take advantage of the fact that it's there? Burlington High School boys won the soccer championship, but there was this big thing at Burlington High School, as boys and girls on the same day. It was better than football, which in my day, you wouldn't think. I'm sure better crowd than football. It was multi-generational, multi-gender. Everyone was there. How do you use that? How do you take that energy that sports can pull together, Message. I'm saying, like last year, boys, Rice, Burlington High School, there's a message. There's a message about violence, there's a message about bullying. You got them there. You tell the coaches, tell the boys, before the game, we're on the loudspeaker, 5 minutes. We're talking about what it means to be a young person inside today. A lot of opportunities to, step in and talk to young people about, these issues that we way underutilize, from my opinion.
Andrew, what do you think?
So I wanted to say two things. One thought I had before was when you're talking about how to channel all of this when you've got so many different kids that are different from each other and in different places in their learning, is to find that child in the classroom who is the example and nurture that child to be a leader. And usually I have a friend who's a teacher, and she says she kind of asks some questions and she figures out who wants to be connected, and you find that child that everybody wants to be connected to, and you nurture that child to be your model. And then that child can help to inform that group around them and create wellness around them. And then the second thing, to build on what you were saying, is play. Play is the work of children, and when they go to school they don't get to play as much anymore, and play is the place where everybody can enjoy themselves, whether it's teachers or kids, and it doesn't have to be just sports. One of the things that's difficult as you get older is you only get to play sports if you're good at sports, and that doesn't create people who have a healthy habit of exercising for their whole life. So if you want to change exercise and you want to create that, then you have to make place for everybody to play, where it's not about how good you are, but it's about the fact that you're participating. My kids have all given up on sports because they don't play year-round, or they weren't good enough. They couldn't continue in soccer because there's no place. My kids are CVU kids. They're done, They could do ninth grade because there's a B, and then they're done. But we're not sending the right message. Right? And
there's a little movement, though, right, Andrew? Like
little
with,
movement.
With ultimate and
Yes,
volleyball are emerging,
and
they're creating places, but it's not the full answer.
Nothing.
Unified sports.
And then
Yeah.
it costs a lot of money. I go to watch one of my kids at track. It's $8. If you're a family with low income, or if you're a family who didn't like to go to school, sports can be the place where you come to school. But we charge a lot of money. And so I have a movement afoot everywhere I can kind of work on it. I'm making us stop charging people to come and be part of the community when we have sports. Because I agree with you. It's a place where lots of people are welcome. It's a place where parents meet other parents and can network. It's where parents meet teachers. It's where parents meet coaches. It's where parents bring their kids home afterwards. It's where younger kids have something to grow up to be, or to get excited about, or to feel part of that school community. So I agree 100%. Let's find more places to play, and let's make it something everybody can do.
I mean, like in college models, like you have intramural sports, you have club sports, and then you have like the actual division sports, which I wish high schools had that kind of model, but obviously we're not really big enough to get to that scale. But I mean, with the movement of ultimate frisbee and volleyball and all that stuff, I think there's improvement at least. Because I mean, I don't do sports at all, but I love ultimate frisbee. So there's that one way or that one outlet. Well, it's my first time, like, actually just starting Ultimate this year. But I mean, there's always an opportunity. Like students who hate physical activity, like, will end up finding something, even if it's intramural or club. Like, I have a friend who hates physical activity, but he also likes Ultimate. So, I mean, it's also like a method where kind of students have to discover what they also like and what they can attain with their physical body, or like what kind of like. But another thing, problem is like scheduling and time with those things is another problem. Because Winooski students, at least in what I've heard, can't balance everything if they are sports players. I'm sure Jen can argue as well.
The European schools go till 5, I think, or there's other school systems where so it's not whether or not your family can afford you to do those things. Everybody just does it, and it's part of the school system.
And it's required to do some sort of activity after school, whatever that might be. And there's in that model, there's a breadth of opportunity, which is sometimes challenging to offer.
Yeah.
Even though I think we have a very healthy after-school C21 program, and we're on a good trajectory with our athletics. But still, we don't, like a CVU, we don't have that breadth of offerings of other activities.
I think it would also, I'm glad that you mentioned play, because I feel like that's the one thing putting my children into elementary school here is there's not enough play, right? It's just recess for 20 minutes. And it would be great if from an academic standpoint, not that we're making the rules around like time in school, but if play and reading and math were all equal. Like you play as much as you read, as much as you do math, because they all infuse each other. And I think we're pretty clear on the research that play is pivotal for social competence, for learning how to count. I mean, everything can be done through play, especially at that early school, early elementary time, is that engagement and being able to want to be in groups, and being the motivator is because I want to play and learning how to play. Could that be a content area, where it's not, anyway, that's a dream because the research supports it.
Well, and as somebody who teaches
Absolutely.
adults, I think play is pretty important as a learning tool in older kids too.
The research shows that we are the only species that actually were physically designed to play throughout our lifetime. Most species actually end play pretty early, right? But humans are designed to play for all of our lives. And so it's a pretty major component that does amazing wellness, social emotion. So I think we should play more.
Well, and I'm really
Can we write that into a policy? Our play policy.
That would be great.
I know, right?
Not sure how it fits in the ed quality standards.
That's what I'm wondering about.
I'm really interested in figuring out how do we take that concept of play into the community so that it's not just the school's responsibility.
Right.
Because it feels in the school sometimes like by the time we get our hands on the kids and we're meeting them where they are, you're in this really tricky position of you've got to build the social emotional skills before the academic learning can start happening, and then you're really doing those kind of parallel because you have to, and it doesn't really work all that well for kids. So if there were more opportunities in the community, I think, to support parents in supporting play, and it became more of a community-wide responsibility, I think we'd see benefits.
Well, this is I'll get to you, Sean, but I think incorporation or integration is something that sometimes gets lost because we feel so regimented by how much time we have and what we have to get done.
Right.
One thing like starting your session here with mindfulness, 5 minutes, are you doing that when you're doing a community meeting? Are you doing stretch breaks? I mean, we have New Balance is a company that we serve in 3 other factories. I mean, they've learned their employees are more productive on the line if they take ergonomic stretch breaks. So they actually shut down the production lines once per hour and go through a series of different stretches, or things like that incorporated into the classroom. And those of us who fly a zillion miles a year, we can read the back and we make sure we twist our foot this way and move our legs this way so we're not clotting all up everywhere and being attacked by those demons. Are there things like that that you incorporate into the classroom, in every classroom? And how do you make that fly? In another life, I was a computer coordinator for a school for learning disabled children. And one of the things we did was when we computerized the school, we looked at, when I built the curriculum, it wasn't just teaching computer skills, it was let's integrate with the other mainstream classroom subjects. So how do you work word processing into English, use databasing for science, use spreadsheeting for mathematics, and you incorporate it so it becomes part of everything, as a part of, instead of going to computer class, or in this case, going to wellness class, or going to physical education class. Is there components that you can incorporate and integrate into every single aspect so it becomes part of the overall holistic nature of the educational offering, as opposed to a class or a session or an event?
Do you do yoga for classrooms? Have you seen that? It's in the Burlington schools?
Yeah.
All of our
They do it?
K to 5 classrooms have that card set.
I was going to say play is also really good for the staff again. That's the other thing, is if the staff has those little breaks and gets to play, it's a coping skill for them, and it's a release for them, and it's another great way to model that we can't work all the time. It's not healthy for us to work all the time. And so if everybody's going to leave here with a toolkit of self-coping skills, right? And they're going to pick the ones that work for them. but every kid should have an idea of what they do when they have some feeling that doesn't feel good or they're feeling stressed. I mean, adolescents have incredibly high rates of anxiety and depression in our society right now. Very, very high. We are overwhelmed in our office by the mental health problems of adolescents. We're a very stressed out society. We think we have to work all the time. So we need to, as a society, embrace play again. Because we need community. Play, play is in community. Play is where we explore. Play is where we create. Play is where we innovate. So I just think that it can be incorporated in lots of different places, but we need to make it a priority.
Yeah, and we have to remember when they're going home, anxiety, stress, and depression are growing at faster rates than any other condition in the medical, hypertension, hyperlipidemia. You look at any of those, the prevalence rates, obesity, the prevalence rates in America of adults, anxiety, stress, depression are growing at a faster rate than anything else. So the child is going home and dealing with an anxious, depressed, stressed parent as well. So, I mean, is there that opportunity through incorporation and integration to have the student become the teacher as well and take exercise, take play, take other aspects home and make it part of, here's what we did at school, family-based activities, other items that can help on the home front as well, that serves an inextricable link, rinse, recycle, repeat in both aspects.
I want to make sure that that folks who haven't spoken yet get a chance here. So, Alex, I don't know if you had some thoughts, or Matt or Jen, if you wanted to jump in there and ask a question or put out a thought. Jen, what do you think? You deal with the little ones all the time.
Yeah, I play every day.
All day.
What's the big deal?
With little
That's
kid,
right.
yeah.
That's why she's happy over
Damn.
there.
I got my own moves.
Like Jagger? What do you think, Matt?
Should we model plan the school board, maybe?
Yes.
Little break? All right.
Absolutely.
Right.
More future meetings. I've enjoyed hearing the diversity perspectives today. It's all been very informative and very enriching.
Alex, what do you think? Does this sound familiar to you? Does this sound foreign? Does this sound like something we're doing, like something we could do more of?
It sounds a bit foreign, but relating to stress, like I feel like sometimes athletes, like I'm an athlete, but even though I'm an athlete, I don't get to play most of the time.
Yeah.
And teachers pile me up with homework, and once I get home from like long games, like sometimes rides are like 2 hours long, and
Right.
I get home, I instantly fall asleep because it's tiring just watching.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, so you've hit on a bunch of different themes that we just talked about here, right? So there's the sleep thing that Rainbow brought up, the stress and the added work and the lack of integration, the stuff that you're talking about.
Just to get up and have to be at school at 8.
And that bringing work home, you know, as if not doing it in school is not enough.
Yeah.
That idea of homework that adds more stress to families and to students, that's an intriguing, another research-based educational problem around homework and the value and what matters most.
Yeah.
And if it's getting away of wellness
Yeah.
and play
Yeah.
and family time and the experience of dinner table, you know, and nutrition to experience other experiences.
Yeah, didn't a South Burlington middle school remove homework because they wanted their kids to play more? Yeah.
We've reduced it here, and what I think is interesting is certainly hearing parents in the parking lot is when you reduce homework, it's as if you're lowering your standards.
Yeah.
And so there's this myth around where we have the research to support that homework does not actually improve academic achievement.
Yeah.
We all believe the opposite of what is true, and so we're stressing out families and kids without true benefit, and yet the message is mixed
That's
around
that
that.
tension in public opinion I was
Yeah,
talking about
the-
at the beginning that we feel often, and it would be great to have the capacity to go out and really sell that message.
And to sell the message of play.
Yeah.
Because even in a high school, I teach in high school, that when we go out and play, someone's like, but don't you have work to do? You know, there's this sense too, it's that mixed message of, but you should be using your time wisely.
Yeah.
Play's not, you know, so again, and I think that as our role, as I'm looking at it from a board perspective, is that communication with community to start putting it out there around wellness and health and that that equal balance between high academic achievement and what also needs to be in tandem with that, which is wellness. That it's hard to achieve high without being well. It's hard to be well when you're over, so somehow being able to communicate these two sides of things too.
Actually,
Yeah, good, Jim.
go ahead. I'll go after you.
No, please.
Well, I was just going to say, our conversation is on a typical average American families having dinner together, having family time, and that assumption should not be made, because there are a lot of our families that don't. Kids are eating in front of the TV. They're left alone. They're running the streets. They're doing this or that, and they're so.
Buses for 2 hours.
As a school, we have to kind of go with that knowledge of getting the kids to know how to keep themselves well without parental support if necessary. So I think we need to not let that slip by.
I feel like that's a good point, just about eating, like eating meals together. And I'm not.
That's a dying
I'm not
thing.
sure. Yeah, how you
Especially
help
with
parents do that.
kids in sports.
It's busy. It's
But
the
could you
busyness
do that-
aspect too. So it's not just not
It's
having
not
a
just
family.
that, it's the
There's
busyness
a
of life.
busyness to it too.
But I feel like I could picture like school lunches or in a classroom or something, like people sitting down and, I don't know, lighting a candle. And it sounds like, but I like saying something to each other and like having a meal, like we're having a meal. This is our school family. And
We do that. We have breakfast in the classroom that we started
that's
last
awesome.
year, and it fits beautifully with responsive classroom and morning meetings. So you're really starting with that familial atmosphere, sitting down. I mean, they have tablecloths and napkins,
awesome.
and they do the whole thing, and they eat together, and there's always an activity to get the day started, kind of, maybe checking in with kids, and they put a particular face to show where they're at when they come in the room, and they eat and they go through the agenda, and I think that we're already seeing some pretty tremendous benefits to starting the day that way.
that's awesome.
I had a comment earlier. You good?
Good.
When you were saying, Andrew, I thought back to the conversation about sports and opportunities and your comment about a student in the class who has that magnetic thing going on, and how do you take full advantage of that. I think a school can also, I don't have all the answers about how you do this, about the pay and but the same thing's happening amongst teachers, right? There's some teachers that just have this magnetism, and if you can figure out a way to facilitate and support those teachers in perhaps running with one of their hobbies and creating clubs. Like in Burlington, there's this guy, he's a middle school teacher, really effective teacher, guy named Matt Chandler, and he happened to be, he loved running, right? And I don't think the middle school had a cross-country program before he just started taking a group of kids running, like a Pied Piper kind of thing. And now there's a very robust cross-country program. It happens to be one of the sports that has much better accessibility, right? It's less driven by, are you good? And it's been an incredible thing. And I don't know if he does it fully volunteer, but he loves running. He's a runner. He's a totally competitive runner, and he's a great guy, and he's also a great teacher. And I think that there's a model in that. How do you try to get more systematic about that? Creating systematic opportunities for teachers or parents who have a hobby or an interest or something, and giving them the tools to run with it. I was thinking, Tori, your thing back to lessons learned. So the issue about play. What happens? I learned, this is really a great challenge in terms of the mindset of our society, and we give, we at the rhetorical level will say we like play, but we don't actually create space for it. So in the early childhood arena, you think of a developmental period, oftentimes you talk about 3 to 3rd grade, right? 3 years old to 3rd grade. And what you find is the developmental things that are happening in there when you create a fluid space, and this is back to that Boston, all different sorts of opportunities, say Waldorf, for example, a Waldorf school or something like that, independent school that has resources and money and privilege, they create this space where 3 to 3rd, it really is that open space. And unlike public school, they don't have the same, to the same degree, these very time-driven milestones where if you don't hit it at this point, it's a problem. In the public school, right, if you're not reading with a fair degree of proficiency by the end of 1st grade, it's a problem, right? We've got reading recovery, we've got other things. But sometimes it is natural that it just didn't happen yet. Everything's in place, and it just didn't click for the child yet. And when you have that open space, so in that open space, a couple things are happening. It's constantly an enriched environment. So the student is having access, in this case, to a environment of incredibly high literacy, even if they're not reading themselves, right? It's a very literate environment. The people literate, they're being read to, they're having, doing the things that readers do, even if it's not reading, right? A lot of the things that are part of literacy. There's less stigmatization, because you didn't miss anything, because we didn't say you had to do it. It was this continuum that's kind of loose and flowing. The whole environment, the parents and the teachers all agree to this thing. So as opposed in the school system, if you're not reading in the first grade, you immediately know you're supposed to be reading. Mm-hmm. So it starts to mess with your psyche. I'm one of those kids who does not read. And, this whole negative thing gets set, whereas the other kid's just like, I'm just going to go play over here because that's what I want to do. And you go play with the book. Your play is the book, mine's the block, and yours the truck, and we're all just playing. And there's no value placed on it yet. And generally, you'll find that by third grade, unless there's something external going on, there's something organic for the kid, they read at a level that's surprising. But we don't have that luxury, right? In public schooling, we don't have that luxury. We have standards, and we have, at times, like you're done with first grade, you're going with second grade. Whereas in Waldorf, you can create a more fluid continuum. And we're trying to do that, I think, with proficiency, and we're trying to create something a little looser or based around some different ways of measuring things. But that was just one of the things, because we were really committed to building in play, but we were having trouble skewing and shifting, like playing with time, time and expectations. Because the external world was having certain expectations. We were trying to create a bubble in the public school system. We couldn't create that bubble like I think a private, more privileged place often has a little more.
And that reminds me of the bubble around sleep, is that we know that adolescents, and high school students really should not be at school at 7:30 in the morning thinking, right? Like the brain's just not ready for that. But the external environment demands that we have to start school at 7:30, right? And we're always tugging that tension.
Otherwise, it gets too dark for sports.
Sports. That's exactly right. Back to sports.
Can I double back on role modeling for a moment? Because, teachers, they go to school to learn how to teach. They learn how to teach their content. They're not taught how to teach health in school. We have health teachers. But in K-12 or K-5, we don't typically have health teachers. You have your phys ed teachers who are sometimes asked to teach health, other concepts. So when we talk about role modeling and saying, oh, well, maybe the teachers can role model, many of our teachers, they're individuals too, and they are still struggling with their own wellness. So it's hard to role model things when, you're still learning yourself. So a challenge would be that, not every teacher has the same idea of wellness or has their own personal wellness, put in place, especially with stress and anxiety. But an opportunity would be, like what we do here in Winooski is we do have our wellness day, but it's once a year. So an opportunity would be looking at allowing playtime in smaller pockets throughout the year, maybe playing with students, but also giving them that opportunity to play together just as colleagues without the pressure of the students being there. Throughout the year, building a sense of community among teachers who then would feel a little bit more supported to support their students in their own. So I would just kind of say that would be an opportunity, is to spread out the wellness, maybe throughout the year a little bit more. Especially during times like right now when, they're stressed to get the progress reports ready and out the door, and, holidays are coming up. So teacher conferences, yeah.
It's getting colder and darker, and there's sort of natural opportunities to be outside and do stuff.
I mean, we know that teachers are being asked to do more than teach now, right? They're being asked to make sure their students are healthy and well. And it's hard to do when you're struggling with your own.
Well, that brings me to my last question. I know you guys have other things to get on to, and we have a few more things we need to do before we go home. But all of this stuff around wellness does come at cost. We have to pay for it. We have to invest in it. And we have to, as a board, justify it to ourselves and also to the community. And so at the risk of trotting on terrain that we've already covered tonight, I would like to request of you that you guys help us to sort of create our pitch and clarify our kind of justification for why we need to invest in this. What do we need to be telling parents in the community about why this is important to fund, why this is important to invest in, so that we can have that message clear for ourselves and also for the community when we go back out there. And maybe that is, the risks if you don't invest, but also the benefits if you do invest. So I would love it if you guys could give us, 4 or 5 elevator pitches we could use on our own psyche, but also out in the community. When people ask us, why does this cost so much? Why does this little school cost $15 million a year?
I feel like I have like the first part of it in my head, which is talking to parents, like understanding that they're stressed out. Like you say, we know you guys are dealing with issues, or everybody's, or maybe like you say everyone struggles with anxiety and stress. This is normal. So to like normalize it, and then maybe they can take a deep breath, and then you can say, I'm not sure what the next message is, but it's like, I don't think it's like we have lots of research that shows this is great. I don't think that resonates as much as it does with some.
Mm-hmm.
I might also work on the idea that technology has created a different world for these children to grow up in than the world the parents grew up in. And so they have this sense of being connected all the time, but that connectedness isn't really a real and true connectedness. And they often are pretty empty. And they feel empty as a result. And so we're having to try and figure out new ways to teach some of the things that they used to learn because we did interact with each other more on a face-to-face level. And so we're trying to figure out how to put that in, because we know that kids may connect socially, but then they feel more left out, and they actually can leave them feeling much emptier. We know that there's a lot of stress in this world because now the expectation's almost been raised to the part that you're supposed to know everything all the time because you have access to it all the time, and that you carry around something where you're supposed to be on all the time because you have to intentionally turn it off. And so we've got a different kind of environment that we're raising our kids in now.
Yeah.
So we almost have to turn things off to get people to have time to play and to learn, because we know that that's an important part of who we are, is that we play, and that we need to talk about how to fill yourself up because we're not having that same environment. And we need to teach kids how to navigate and be healthy in an environment where they're being fed so much information all the time that it's overwhelming. And so we need to give them those skills. We need to teach them how to turn things off. We need to teach them and remind them that they need to sleep, because it's not that there's nothing on TV anymore. There's stuff on TV all the time. So it's not like you turn it off because it got boring or it was just not the shows you were interested in. So how do we help these kids, because they're living in a different world than the world you lived in. And so it's a different kind of discussion we have to have.
Well, you also, part of justification, right? You threw a number or a measure. Are there hard measurables that you can go back with, even from a predictive modeling perspective? You might not have hard metrics yet, but you can make safe assumptions that you're going to reduce illness. You're going to reduce absenteeism. You might reduce injuries. There's other aspects that go along with it that can not only save the individual, but can save the families, potentially, when you're reducing those things, the cost of utilization of the morass that is the healthcare delivery system in this country. So how do you alleviate that pain, that burden, by having a healthier child, a healthier classroom, a healthier population? Get into looking at measurements of total population health management and where they're going, the excess cost associated with obesity, with hypertension, with stress. And, there's D. Eddington's research and other, great research that's been done, isosymmetry, that can tell you it's $3,000 more per year for someone who has X. It's $4,000 more per year for someone who has this. And you do a predictive modeling exercise that says, if we don't do these things to potentially lower, and I know you said obesity isn't as much of an issue here, but if we don't do these things to lower childhood obesity, if we don't do things to alleviate stress, depression, anxiety, here's the ultimate cost that it's going to be for you and your child over year by year analysis. And then can you look at those other things? Can you measure a reduction or a predictive modeling reduction in absenteeism, in injuries, in, better nutrition, better sleep? Can you look at presenteeism? The child that is falling asleep at their desk. They're there, but are they there? Are there anything like that that you can accumulate to build a predictive modeling for expected savings, not just for the district, but for the individual families as well. Looking at it from a teacher perspective and getting some onus to put them in this game as well. One of your highest costs has got to be what a lot of our school districts face around the nation is substitution costs. So you can reduce the substitution rate by getting healthier, more well-focused teachers.
In medicine, it's called adverse childhood experiences. So hypertension, obesity, diabetes, all of them now have been shown to come from adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, ACEs. So that's what there's a lot of literature, and Kaiser's done a lot of those studies. So there are facts out there about the fact that the things you experience as a child affect your health for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Beyond diet and exercise.
I would say that kind of, even though it doesn't necessarily reflect everything that we've been talking about, bringing it back to wellness and academic success really does resonate with a lot of the populations that you might be making this pitch to. And some of those things are intuitive, like what Jerry was just talking about with if the kid's in school, then they're going to be in, if they're there, then they're going to be learning. And if they're not well, then they might not be there. So some are intuitive like that, and there's just a lot of literature and research that has been done in more ways than the very intuitive ones that show that if kids are well and healthy and supported, then they're going to be more successful. And I think that's what a lot of people care about.
I'm only can sort of like echo what Jerry was saying, and Jerry and Andrea know this much better than me. I'm just learning about community and population health, and the Y is involved in that. We have these health self-managed programs, but my understanding at the national level, or at least under the idea that we would continue with the Affordable Care Act, this was the case. We may no longer be that, but my understanding of that was that it was this idea of becoming more preventive, more proactive, and it's sort of, I don't know if it's that leap of faith, and there are numbers, right? But it just strikes me that that if there were some way to create some sort of pilot program, some kind of relationship between a place like the Winooski School District and a place like the UVM Medical Center, it just seemed impossible for me not to imagine that if you put these dollars towards these proactive measures around people's health and wellness, that over some period of time you could measure that versus some prior period of time and the number of procedures and different hospital stays and high cost things, that I would imagine the more serious it is, this community uses the medical center because that's the place that has that technology and those abilities. I mean, the cost savings would be astronomical. But someone has to decide we're actually going to do this, right? I think intuitively, those of us who are in it, just like there's no way it can't work, right? It's impossible that the dollars spent up front will be a fraction of the dollars we currently spend, but we just never shifted. And part of it is because we don't have the imagination, and part of it is, there's a lot of people with power who want it to be the way it is now. That's not popular, but I would argue that that's part of it, because when you shift it, you shift the way the money flows and who has what job and what job gets paid what. If you really cared about the end user, what was happening for the end user patient and not the system of how it gets there. If you were agnostic about how it gets there, except for the highest outcome for the most efficient use of money, I think you'd build something different, and we would see that could be very effective. But I don't have the magic about how you get that shift to doing that. But
as you're making the pitch, one other thing as well is, if you have the opportunity for people to help you with that, it's amazing to me, sometimes we forget this as well, as evidenced by Dr. Herring from UVM Medical Center, but UVM, I mean, you have some of the best resources in the world. I mean, Jim Hudsiak, is, brain lobe development and, what he's doing with the College of Wellness up there now. I mean, he's world renowned. I mean, everybody in the world knows who he is and what he does. And he's on the board, the National Health Board of Holland. Everybody except for people in Vermont know who he is. And he can come and speak to you for 10 minutes, and it'll be the most amazing conversation and presentation you've ever received.
Yeah,
in
he
your
can present it
lifetime.
to your parents. Yeah. And then there are mandates now if you're a not-for-profit that you have to give money. So there's the community benefits at the hospital that has money that it has to give out. And so if you had a pilot project, you could probably go to them, and they have all the data on Winooski.
We've worked with them in a couple different ways.
Yeah, so
The
it might be a-
Garden and the Farm to School with BYCC.
So if you had another, I mean, they might
Yeah.
be willing to take on something like this because I think wellness is really important. It's something they're trying to do in their institution as well, so.
That's great. Board colleagues, Sean, any observations, anything you learned tonight that you
Well, I
observed
mean,
here?
part of the purpose of this is to help me
Yeah.
figure out how are we going to measure this over time. So
Yeah.
when we get, we started 4 years ago with the development of an end statement. We're kind of breaking out the pieces of that while I'm doing monitoring reports on other things. The board's starting to do their monitoring reports, so the governance is becoming a lot more active and robust. And so this piece is to figure out what are the most important parts of how to define what healthy lives means, and then what are some indicators of that we can follow over time. And so one thing that I can say definitively, we have a few of those. So the Youth Risk Behavior Survey is a great one. And this year we were able to have 3 consecutive years, 11, 13, and 15, and we're seeing some growth. Now, the causality and everything might be a little less than perfect at this time, but we're seeing some real growth in the areas of food. High school students, percentage who ate fruits or vegetables 5 or more times per day in the past 7 days went from 27 to 34%. Which, when you say overall, you kind of go 34% for everyone. That's not great, but for us, and that's the state average is 24%. Or when we talk about emotional wellness and the students reporting high school that they matter to people in the community went up from 42 to 51%. And the state average is 50. Or saying that teachers really care and give lots of encouragement went from 59 to 77%. That has a lot to do with the proficiency work, and Ellie Mae support, and getting to know kids and asking them, like, who do you want to be and what do you want to learn, while at the same time meeting those basic needs. So I think we got a pretty good start, and I feel like tonight was really helpful to me, not only for some ideas to pursue, whether it's funding, whether it's ways to measure, whether it's a way to leverage things that we already have, but then how to work with the board to really sell this to the community, and then to be able to really follow it and see if we're making progress. So, thank you.
Andrew, you want to leave us some parting words?
Well, I was just going to say one other thought, which was to think about substance abuse as self-medicating, and to look at that as another thing in the wellness building. Because I think when you give people other ways to cope, then they don't turn to alcohol and drugs to manage their emotions. And I think that in this community, in the state in general, we really need to be mindful of that. And, children learn from parents, and a lot of our parents have not learned how to do it and have a lot of substance issues. We have a lot of disconnectedness. And I think the biggest challenge for the school is to really work on that emotional piece, but then also to keep continuing to reach out to parents to make them feel welcome. And to nurture them in addition as best we can for the kids' sake.
Thanks for mentioning that. It's been rattling in my head for the last 10 minutes. Because it's unfair to say that that's not a big cause of self-medicating. Is one of the ways of when kids do not have the wellness they need, are the self-regulating skills as they grow up. Especially if their modeling behavior is that.
Yeah.
So it's important.
Well, technology is almost becoming
Their self-medication.
another
Yeah.
substance.
Right.
It is
It makes it
another
easy to
substance.
hide.
Yeah. Stay on
And
Well,
and
Jay-
Sean and JC, one thing we are continually available as well. I mean, no cost to you at all. If you need help, if you need, our people to come up here, Megan and the team, I mean, we're ready to come up at any point, any time, and continually pitch in and help. I mean, our people really love the opportunity to come up here and do it. They take great joy in it. It gets them away from some of the other things that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So, I mean, if we can help you at all, we're available, and, you know, no cost at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add one more thing since
Yeah.
you touched on this, my shtick too? Just that I think I'm just seeing like a lot of opportunity to expand our idea of like what causes people to pick up substances, and it's so many factors. And there is a lot of good research to show that, and you know, our coalition is working on this specifically, but there's a lot of research to show that the factors like that marketing that these companies do has a huge impact, more so than peers. So like the more we can teach media literacy to the kids, and also like, you know, in the community, make those things less visible and the good stuff more visible, there, you know, it will get, we all have rough moments in life, right? So when what's in front of us is that versus like go for a run with your friend, like that'll be easier.
Yeah. Well, Jerry, Andrea, Kyle, JC, Kate, Tom, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. Very enlightening and super, super helpful for our development here. And I know it's going to be helpful for Sean to come back to a proposal for us. That we can look. He's the one who does the work, so that's great to have you guys here helping him out.
Just wait till you see that budget proposal.
Yeah. We'll be looking at that. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you for
Yeah.
doing
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is
Good
great.
luck.
Yeah.
Mike,
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I don't think I
Kyle,
yeah, thank you so much.
are your sons Manny and Isaac Dodson?
Okay, so are we back in action? Everyone, we ready to move forward?
Me and Tori.
So next on the agenda is number 6. We still have the diversity of views student report to the board.
Fair.
Alex is going first.
Okay, so recently we had a half day that we were just picking random choices to like go on either field trip or take a PSAT. And once we were taking the PSAT, some of my peers were complaining about their math program and how our math levels didn't match up with the pre-SATs that we were taking. Once we were like during breaks, they're talking about how it was a little bit too hard for them, even though like this was designed for sophomores, and we're juniors, and next year this year we're going to take the SATs. And when everything else is pretty good, but like the math is where most of us got stuck. And also like they're mentioning about like what levels are you taking, and like we have like different IMPs, while other school goes to have like algebra 1, geometry, trigonometry. And pretty much like we don't know what to do sometimes, and like our math levels are holding us back because like some students aren't motivated enough to work extra time in and out of school. Like some of my classmates I see, they're either watching Netflix or just chatting with friends like across the room with like text messaging. Also, during a group advisory that we were meeting with, we're talking about tardiness, and our tardiness fee, pretty much how like there's 3 tardies and pretty much you get dropped out of the class. Sometimes students like show up a minute late and they go report, or like the teacher's already talking to them, and that like hurts them because like maybe transportation or traffic. Sometimes parking is a problem at the school. That's all I have to say for now.
Yeah, and just to clarify our tardiness policy, like It's basically like the college system where your first tardy in class, it doesn't matter which class it is, first, second, third, fourth block. It's kind of like a warning. Teacher kind of asks you like, hey, what's up? And then just checks in. Then you get a second warning in which it's reported and you have to, I believe, your parents get called. And then you get a third warning, which is basically you have to create a plan with the principal or administration to help fix the tardiness situation. And then you have a plan where you have to follow it. And if you do not follow that plan or do not comply to follow that plan, you're dropped out of that class. There are benefits, there are advantages and disadvantages to this policy in which seniors are very highly motivated to not be tardy because we can't afford to drop classes, especially our first block classes in which both of those are required. But in another sense, there are people who can't afford to arrive on time sometimes because simply transportation is an issue or different events come up in which there are accidents and they were not planned. And so there are those situations, and Alex stated it well. As for other things, we had quickly 2 days after our board meeting in October, students wore black and gold to commemorate the lives lost in the Harwood community, and good vibes were sent from students in middle, high school, and the faculty of all parts of the district took a photo together, and then we tweeted out to them, and we just sent a lot of support to them. And then the girls' soccer team wore black and gold on the playing field for their senior night, which was very sweet of them.
That's wonderful.
And then a few weeks after that, we had the Roland Conference, which is an annual event held at UVM that talks about different themes and topics related to education. And this year's theme was related to equity in our schools, and our keynote speaker was Jonathan Kozel, which was a pleasure to see. We had 15 students, which is, I think we were the biggest group, biggest student group there. We had 15 students and 8 faculty members attend this conference, and students had their own workshop of all students, and it was learning about Act 77 and personalized learning plans. And then in the afternoon, we came back together as a group, as a school group, to reflect on our learning. And we brainstormed some primary problems that students believe that we need improvement on in our schools, and brainstorming solutions to these problems. And it was a very calm and collected discussion in which we talked about the most important issues to us, which were such as the balance of personalized learning and traditional learning, student voice, mental health, and informing students on new changes. And so it was really a well-received discussion in which all students participated in, even those you would not consider to really speak up much. They all had some kind of say in any of those 4 topics. And we collaborated with the faculty who were also interested in the specific topics, and we brainstormed some solutions and plans to see like how we as a school can help change that. And we got positive feedback from most, if not all, students about how effective the Roland Conference was and how beneficial and strong, and it helped make our community a little stronger, and helped some of the students in which are kind of new to the whole student voice thing, and help them create a perspective too, because they're not only the usual student voice members, but there were also lots of new faces who were very eager to share their ideas, and it was wonderful. Monday, we had visitors from Otter Valley Union High School and Lamoille High School to learn about our structure and curriculum that we're doing here. And these students and teachers from these places got to explore the iLab, the French lab, our ELL classes, and many other classrooms. And there was lots of positive feedback and compliments off of our wonderful community, our impressive and working personalized structures in which they thought was a model to really look at and look up to. Our supportive faculty, our powerful ELL program, and our student body, and how well we represented our community. And these students and teachers from other places really commended Winooski for the fact that how different our school was, but at the same time it was a working model. Although, of course, we're not the perfect school, they really found that it was a very great learning experience for them. And even our own students learned a lot from entering classrooms that they're not used to entering. A lot of students who aren't usually in the ELL classrooms got a chance to check out what it's all about, because usually we have class at the same time. And you got to learn so much about the peers that we can't really, like, sometimes we can't even communicate with yet. Like, we entered the foundational, like, newcomer English ELL class, and we discovered that some of these students are learning their 6th language. English is their 6th language? Are you serious? And so, like,
ESL, English is a 6th language.
And so it really opened a lot of our own students' eyes as to what's going on in our school. And our final student reflection from our students was that they grew a newfound respect, and they feel more proud to be here at Winooski, with great emphasis on seeing the beauty and grandness of what we have here. And although we recognize our flaws, we can appreciate more of what we have rather than what we don't have, which was something that a student specifically said, that a lot of students end up focusing on what we don't have rather than the amazing things that we do have. So it was a great day, and I really loved hearing that from the students. And we just had a half day today as well, and students walked in with downcast mindsets after the recent events. And the day started off with a school-wide pancake breakfast, which really lifted the spirits of the high school students and even the faculty, in which the faculty served food to us, the students, which was really fun. And there were pancakes, eggs, chocolate chips, whipped cream, apple cider, etc., to the entire high school population. And after long lines ended, we had a school-wide trivia, which was super fun, and we got very heated up over it. And we got to interact with people who we usually don't sit with. Like, we weren't forced to sit with our friend groups, but like, we actually kind of mingled with other students whom we don't talk to. And so we've created some really wonderful, like, trivia teams that consisting of students from all different backgrounds. And it was really great. And then we had our Penguin Plunge assembly. We had a school-wide Simon Says to take a break, because we realized as a half-day team that if we go from a 30-minute Penguin Plunge assembly to another, like, say, 20-minute, 30-minute presentation, students' attention spans will not last that long.
So you played?
Yeah, so we played. I was
Look
about
at
to
that.
mention that earlier. So we took, I believe, a 10-minute break. Students had the option of joining the Simon Says group, watching the Simon Says group, which was funny, or just chilling, talking with your friends, or going on your phone. Like, it was just a rest break. People stand up, and I think it really helped, especially after our discussion today. And then afterwards, we had the announcement about Act 77 PLPs to our entire school, because we're trying to initiate PLPs in our school.
And this is just high school,
Just
right?
high school.
Okay.
Yeah, middle school is taking a different approach, but similar, in which today we're working on album covers for our personalized learning plans.
What's that?
Which is a Google Drawing image collage of images that people, students, and faculty think describes them as a person now, or and we got teachers to present their own album covers of either their high school self or their current self, and it was really incredible because the teachers really indulged in sharing about who they are, and in my opinion, I thought it was really nice. Like, we got to know some of the teachers more. And they described different points, such as how it connected to them as a person and why they wish they had a personalized learning plan in high school to help them. And then we broke out into our grades to make our own plans. And then the last 45 minutes after lunch, we were split into multiple workshops for students to pick to attend, which is either to continue working on your personalized learning plan, playing the game Mafia. The junior class had a college workshop, or anybody else who was interested in participating in that college workshop to learn more about college and career readiness. We had an egg drop competition preparation for tomorrow's egg drop at STEM night. We had a yoga session, and we had an information session for Vermont playwrights for those interested in theater and writing. And we even had a last-minute addition, which was a discussion about the election yesterday.
Ooh,
and
that's nice.
This is the one I attended, and it was a very serious discussion about the election last night, but it was a really open space for people to just share their thoughts and opinions and their feelings without having to debate each other. It was just a place where you can discuss but not debate. And so I thought it was an interesting and kind of a bonding experience, even though there were points where debates probably almost boiled up, but they were controlled and settled down. Do you have any additions?
The college workshop was pretty interesting. It gave us a lot more resources to use to find college. And when our Liam, our coordinator for helping us go to college, he told us great ways and great resources to use to get prepared to go to college. And I think the playwrights, that's an amazing thing to do, because I think before our previous graduates told us there's like drama clubs, but over time it got cut from the school, so adding that back is pretty good.
Yeah. So that's our student report. Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing what's going on. It's always really nice to hear from both of you. about what's-
We played. I love that you held space for people to be able to process the election.
Oh, yeah.
Active engagement, local, national engagement. Okay, so also under governance processes, we need to look over the board progress monitoring report 4.2 of board job description. This is just a discussion. So we can review and discuss this monitoring report. This has come back to us from last time with more additions and more explanations. Anybody have any comments or discussions of what you see and read? Big picture wise, will this, if we add comments, this is going to come back to us next month for approval? Okay. Any thoughts or additions, edits, questions?
The only thing I think I see is in policy 4.24, the conclusion is we report in compliance versus we've stated we report compliance in other places. I'm not sure why that language is different, which is the typo, but.
Good point, yes. Okay, yeah, there just seems to be a couple typos. All right, 42.2, we interpret this to mean ... We serve our community to provide guidance through policy. I think that just needs to be tidied up. If there's any other, additions to language. There we go. So this looks to be more like editing in terms of italics and random capital here and there. But content-wise, this will come back to us next month for us to approve. Okay?
Yeah, from the content looks reasonable, logical.
Great. Okay. All right, then moving on. The next one is executive limitations. We're going to start with a discussion on policy title 2.4, financial planning and budgeting. This will be our budget timetable, and then also the superintendent monitoring report, which is also up for review and discussion.
So in your packet, in 6A, you have a budget development timetable for FY 18. So this is the budget schedule for you to review and hopefully adopt with those dates for the budget cycle. and I can kind of walk you through them. On Monday, the 28th of November, we will distribute the baseline budget to the board in preparation for the meeting on the 30th, in which we'll do the ends presentation and talk about any significant variances that were in the baseline budget year to year. Robin will come and do a presentation on special education, programming and expenses. Kirsten will talk about English language learning. And also we have facilities operations and technology included that night. And then, as you'll see, there's a meeting a week, every Wednesday from then on. So basically, we have discussion at all of those meetings and sharpening, continuing to sharpen the pencil in between for Rebecca, the finance manager, and I, and bring back any changes week to week.
Sean, these are all at 6:30, correct?
These are all at 6:30, yes. And then, as you well know, we don't get some of the important numbers until later in the process, typically mid-December or even early January, when we start to get revenue and tax information. And then we have a meeting scheduled for the 21st, and it says if needed there. Last year you didn't need that
Right.
meeting. And then there's another one the first Wednesday of January when we return for the final review, and then there would be adoption coupled with a regular board meeting on January 11th. And that is a pretty hard stop because of all the other things that have to happen underneath there with the building of the annual report and the warning and so forth.
Does this timeline vary from what it was last year or the year before?
It hasn't changed significantly from last year. I think we had, from either the prior year or 2 years before that, we were able to reduce the number of meetings by at least one, maybe two.
Yeah, I think so, at least one. So are we looking for an adoption of this timetable?
Yes.
Seems reasonable.
Just a thumbs up thing?
Yeah, yeah. Just to make sure that the dates work for everybody and that,
Any dates
we
outstanding?
want to have everybody here, obviously. It's important stuff.
Yeah.
We still doing a Betty?
That was the other thing I was going to mention, that Mike wanted to mention, was certainly it would be helpful, as was asked about the budget meetings, and I will make sure that
That they get that
Infinite gets that
information?
information.
Thank you.
But that all of you go out and find somebody that you can bring and that is willing to attend all or most of those meetings and really learn about the budget and ask good questions and become an ambassador in the community for what the budget represents and means for students.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, all good?
I have a conflict for one of those dates. I believe. Yeah, the 7th, I have a conflict.
Okay.
With another board. So I may not be at that one.
I have a lot of classes planned that month, but I don't know what dates they are. I think it made most of them for Tuesdays and Thursdays because of the board, but
Budget season.
I'll verify when I get home and I'll email you
Okay.
if there's any conflict.
Okay. Good. Okay, excellent. All right, great, moving on. Let's, we're just gonna review and discuss the monitoring report, the financial planning and budgeting report.
Wait, are you gonna do a motion to accept the timetable?
Do we need a motion for that? We just kind of, just sort of all,
No,
sort
you
of
don't
collectively
need
agree,
it.
like,
Yeah.
yes, we can
Yeah, you don't need
make
a
the
formal
majority.
motion.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
So policy 2.4, superintendent monitoring report, financial planning and budgeting. This report was one of the originals, so it's coming back to you for a second time. And I have not changed anything significantly in the interpretations while I've reviewed it thoroughly. There was, in my estimation, there's no need for any significant changes.
The evidence is dense, which is nice in a financial report.
In number 2.
And 4, and yes.
Yeah.
How much of the evidence that you're drawing, Sean, is sort of by law, and how much of it is stuff that you invented to make it, work?
Well, law is in number 4. There's a listing of things, particularly in the last bullet there with all the acts, which is important information for the board to have as we build the budget.
Yeah.
Some of the things in terms of number 1, conditions, I guess you could say some of those would fall into law. A lot of them are more generally accepted accounting, procedures and internal controls, and they can get you into trouble with the law if you don't have proper controls in place.
Right.
And then in number 2, a lot of that has to do with, there is law around having a reserve fund and what you can and cannot use that for. But the way that we report, there isn't a law that says you have to necessarily give a monthly report, or we've crafted that process for the board.
Any edits, comments? Changes?
Jen is our financial board rep. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
No, it looks great. I read it earlier.
It's very clean.
It's very clean.
Yeah.
He's very good at what he does.
It's true. It's true.
Very efficient. Okay, so this will come before us next month.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Community engagement, policy 4.2.1.
One more, 6B.
Oh, 6B, the communication and support to the board. Policy title 2.8, this is to accept an anonymous donation, or just to inform us?
So again, Brenda, just for note-taking, this doesn't require board action. The reason that I had it put on the agenda was I wanted to make sure that the board knew about it, although the donor required anonymity with the donation, but it was significant, and I think when we have significant donation, it's important to note that.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to tell the story. We had some Vermonters who contacted me and said, "Hey, I heard that you guys are doing some really great stuff in Winooski. We heard about your garden, and we read some testimonials from your students about their work with VYCC and the garden and all the food security work and the mindfulness, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing in the city of Winooski, and how can we help?" And so I invited them to come to the school, and because they'd never been here, and we did a tour of the school, and we sat down and we talked, and it resulted in a $10,000 check the next day.
Holy cow.
And with the understanding that they would remain anonymous, and that it would be used to support basic needs of our students and families in order to support readiness for learning, and that there would be a report back in July, no more than a page, of how that money was used.
Awesome.
So
Thank you
to that donor, and also a big part of what I appreciate is often we struggle with capacity in getting money, and then all the requirements that are tied to the progress and reporting back and everything, and the fact that these folks were interested in helping and trusting of me and the school to shepherd that money in a positive way for our community is wonderful.
That is awesome.
That is fantastic. Huh.
Thank you. That's wonderful. All right, so number 8. No, sorry, number 7 now. Community Engagement Policy 4.2.1. Discussion, recent community activities by board members.
I did the Promise Committee meeting,
Oh, you did?
And how was it?
but more as a professional than
Yeah.
that, than a board member.
Promise Community.
Right, is that what the name of
State
it is?
group.
Yep. Yep.
Community
Mhm.
group.
Great.
Yeah.
Which was awesome, and after you left, we got into some of
Promise
the
Community.
tough stuff, but
Good.
Meeting.
I haven't heard from her
Promise
yet, so
Community.
hopefully I will. But
Meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I remember something. Yesterday at the voting polls, we had the senior class Project
yeah.
Grad group had a by donation only bake sale,
Sure
and
did.
we raised $980 for
Get
Project
out.
Grad.
Really?
That's fabulous.
All donation.
I can tell you the zucchini bread was X.
Fantastic.
And I heard there was over 700 pounds of food collected or something at
Oh,
the
wow.
for the food shelf. At
Yeah,
the-
70
there was a huge turnout of voters yesterday,
yeah.
over 3,000.
Wow. Is that right?
Brian went and helped
Count them up.
count them up.
Oh gosh.
I did in Milton.
Good for you.
Yay.
That's a very
Okay.
long process.
All right.
It's tiring.
Yes?
I got 2 big ideas.
Is this a big idea time? I'm just kidding. Go
Well,
ahead.
it's not, I mean, it's about community participation. It's not about things that events that I attend or anything like that. But I got 2 things. One, I think, I know we have to sort of check into how we want to react to, I think, our public comment section, which feels a little bit hollow and unsatisfactory.
Kind of ties into another thing too. So, how do we go about that?
I would suggest how you would go about that would be one of you crafting an email to Mike to have it on a future agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
And whether or not that entails you wanting me to report back to you about something, something specific that you heard.
Right.
Or even if there is a direct inspection that someone would like to do related to whatever, what was heard today.
Great. Yeah, I mean, there's that piece, but there's also just like in the moment, it just feels really awkward and strange and a little bit alienating to the people who are putting themselves out there to come talk to us to not
Say something back.
Yeah, and I get that we don't want to get into a back and forth, and then we don't want to get into the details of things that we have chosen not to engage with.
Right, because we want to follow the policy, which is to redirect, right?
Right.
So that things go through the proper channels. but-
Well, there is, if you look at the public participation in public meeting policy, a lot of Ps there, you can choose after public comments, if you would like, to put an item on the agenda later in that agenda.
In that same agenda?
You can.
Okay.
Discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a board prerogative.
Right.
And I think because Mike wasn't here, it's probably just a little awkward for the whole.
Totally, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
with
I
the
know he has
Healthy
strong
Lives
feelings
Forum
about
and
it.
all the guests here and everything, I think it
Yeah.
was a different situation tonight.
But I
Yeah.
think, some
Right.
that has to be taken.
And our policy does state right off the top that it is the policy of the board to encourage public participation at its meetings.
Yeah, and I mean,
Very
if
successful.
we're having like this big effort to get more engaged with the community, but the most basic process that we have, I feel like it's a little bit flawed, and it seems like it doesn't really jive with our
I
intent
felt
to.
like we disappointed her.
Yeah, and we may have done that anyway. Like, I'm not sure
Yeah,
there's a lot of
I
it
know,
done.
but I
just-
think one of the things we have to be careful of is we don't want people to think we don't care.
Exactly.
And I
exactly.
feel like she left kind of like, I mean, I care tremendously about what she had to say.
Yeah.
So I would have loved to expressed that at least to her.
Right, right.
And let her know that we will definitely look into it, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And
Right.
I felt like it was just an awkward moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not one to speak my mind anyways, but.
Well, we're so like unused to that public participation piece that I think we probably do need, we've been able to
We
not even
definitely
think
need to
about it
work.
for a long time.
Yeah,
and-
yeah. That was the first in a very long time.
Yeah.
How we can validate but not engage. I mean, or maybe
Exactly.
something like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there's that piece. Another piece is that on the transportation side, I mean, here's another great opportunity that we have to engage with a really interested and engaged group of folks that I think we could probably do some more work on. I happen to have a conversation with a friend of mine who's a big data guy, big data science guy. He's a consultant. He sort of looks at big data with a lot of the people. And I was telling him about our transportation issues and the way that our sidewalk plowing budget has to do with our children getting to school, and that it's hard to figure out how to create a system that is efficient and also cost effective in our little town with such a limited budget. And he was suggesting that he has a group of data folks who gather together for, just because they're like big data people and they exchange stuff. And he was suggesting that with kind of an analysis of a GIS thing with points about where students are getting to and from, and a conversation with the city, that there are probably ways to look at the big data. I don't know if the city's already done this, where you could figure out, where there are access points, where you could plow strategically certain sidewalks to get greater access points to students, and know that those certain access points will be plowed and dry, so they're not iced over, so that you can have sort of centralized pickup points, either for buses or for ride share kind of stuff. And he was very willing to take it on pro bono and also bring it to his group to look at that stuff. So I'm going to meet with him Friday, and I don't know if you can share the location data, the spatial data with me, of course, without any names or anything, that I could take to him and we could sort of look at.
Yeah, we have that.
And I don't know, I guess would it be talking to Peter down at the city about, how that goes down?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would go through Ray, I guess.
Okay.
But Peter is the one who runs that part of it, the division, yeah.
Great.
And Joe.
And then maybe we could put that on the agenda next time and just sort of share what we found, and maybe even invite Peter and Ray down and see if they'd be interested in coming to that. And then, we could actually have kind of a response for once on the transportation
That is
piece.
the thing we're talking about, the next agenda.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Perfect. It fits right in.
Well, and I got one more on this public engagement piece. I had a meeting with a friend the other day who's we have a lot in common professionally, but she does a lot more than I do on public participation stuff in general and public governance. And we got to talking about participatory budgeting, which is when you set aside a particular amount of money, a small amount of money, could be $10,000, could be $5,000, could be $2,000, whatever, and you have meetings to sort of determine what objectives you would want to fulfill with that money, and then what kind of projects you want to do with that. So imagine, for example, and I picked out $10,000 in that conversation by coincidence, not knowing that would come up here. But if we said to if we sort of convened a process of our parents and community, and it could be teachers and students, all together convened by the board, says, hey, we got $10,000. Our objective is to promote something to fulfill the basic needs of students and families. What ideas do you have? And have sort of a discussion, a dialogue around developing some ideas. And then once we get some solid ideas about what things could happen, then we can invite proposals. And then, choose a proposal and execute that money according to that proposal. But it will be a way to draw people in. It's a participatory budgeting thing that doesn't have to, nobody has to look at our budget and sort of veto line item stuff, the stuff in our mainline budget. We go through our normal process there, but it's a chunk of money that I had imagined we could set aside just out of our budget somehow, or in addition to, put an extra $10,000 in there. Yeah.
Because that's actually critical thinking and problem solving. And in engaging our GXs around real time, let's think critically about some problem. Here's a problem we're thinking about. Let's have some active engagement on that.
Totally.
And then be able to see the results of it. So they're almost like that cycle of prognosis, decision-making, look at it, measure, that whole cycle of decision-making.
The work that we're supposed to be doing.
The work that we're supposed to be doing, and it's a way to engage the community in something that's real and meaningful.
Yeah.
That it's not a huge dollar amount, but more importantly, I think the engagement and the sort of, you could sort of align that with our broader objectives and our end statements and all that stuff.
Also the engagement, like the local engagement of problem, solving
Framing
active
the
problems
problem,
within
yeah.
our own small school community here. Maybe broad like Winooski, but it's such a localized practice, and
Yeah.
also getting kids and parents thinking in ways of like, wow, we can solve problems.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And being engaged in that process. I mean, that's a huge learning experience.
yeah.
So
So,
that could be put on an agenda. Would that be an agenda item?
What would it be?
Critical thinking, problem solving,
I mean, I would-
GX work for the whole community, students, teachers, yeah.
that would be the guts of it. I think you could call it
Right.
participatory budgeting conversation.
Would it be, so if it's an agenda item, would it be something that we could write like like a little summary of what we're looking to do, and then it would seem like we'd have to take action on whether that's something the board wants to get involved in and be able to somewhat facilitate
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. But maybe bringing up sort of a
Proposal?
little proposal of what is this about,
I'll put
and
together a
how would
proposal
it
for you
be
guys.
executed, how would we, it
Yeah,
fleshed out as much as possible
Yep.
with a new idea, right?
totally. I could do that.
Okay,
You guys like it?
I do like it.
Seem like a good idea?
Something to,
Exploring,
Yeah?
yeah, something to explore, yeah,
Especially
right.
since we're getting into the budget. It's a good time to do it.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Right.
I have another agenda item, or to discern whether this is an agenda item, is interested in bringing up the wellness policy to possibly, maybe after we do the interpretations of the conversations we've heard here around wellness, is then weighing it up against the policy that we did.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's been a year ago at least on wellness, but seeing whatever emerged out of that sort of popped up, like for me, play, of how do we want to use that policy to inform what we heard around what we're measuring?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you mean before the interpretation? To inform the interpretation or after the interpretation?
I'm not sure.
I think we have to be careful that we don't get into the means and the procedures of it.
Certainly, but I feel like, and that's what I'd like the discussion to be about, is as we weigh up against.
Yeah, I think we should definitely have a discussion.
Look at what we put, like review it. I mean, we can do it individually, but just to bring those two pieces together, possibly, if there's a possibility for that.
What would be a logical sequence for you, Sean, while you're thinking about the
That's a great way
interpretation
to
of all
ask
this stuff?
Of the wellness policy?
To review the
Bringing that
wellness
back?
policy in light of the conversation we had, would it be easier or more logical for you to do that before you try to come up with interpretation or after?
Well, it depends on whether or not you want to substantially change that policy or not.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's thinking around the table that there might be, then it would be more beneficial to do it earlier than
Policy
later.
first.
So that my interpretation, if that comes out
Response to the
not
policy.
congruent with a new policy, or with a revision of the policy, 6 months later, that could be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we should do it sooner.
So it was done in 2015.
Mm-hmm. In September 2015.
Yeah.
1 year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that it wouldn't really be up for another couple of years.
Yeah.
In the kind of normal cycle of stuff, but.
Right.
With the budget and everything, are we going to have time to do that at our next meeting? Would it be better to just all of us review it and bring it in the January meeting or the February meeting?
Sure. Yeah. Or were you thinking of doing interpretations prior to January?
No.
February? Okay, good.
No.
Okay.
So-
Yeah. So February.
Still good in
And then
January.
maybe just send it to us or make it, we can look it up ourselves.
Yeah.
And just go through it and check it out and see.
January?
So we
February?
have on the agenda so we don't do policies until February in the normal review cycle because of the budget. So we have access to technology and harassment of employees are the February
I think we just did that one.
in the review cycle.
Dude,
Okay.
let's put that one in February and push it back a month.
Put the
Or-
wellness policy in there?
Yeah. So then we do 3? We probably could do 3. I don't think technology is going to be a big one.
And some of them are,
No.
State.
Shouldn't be harassment of employees.
Yeah, let's stack them up. Let's stack them up in February.
Yeah. Okay. Another policy question. I noticed we have a policy on attendance. However, we do not have a policy on tardiness, and there were no words of tardiness in this policy. And it does.
They're in the procedures below.
There is a tardiness? I couldn't find some of this. And again, this is a curiosity question around, since we were talking about tardiness policies. I was like, wait, do we have one of those?
Yeah.
It's more about truancy in general, but it doesn't, this team, at least from my interpretation, it's more focused on attendance, like whether you're absent or not whether you're late to class.
Right. The only
Right.
thing it says in the policy section is frequent or prolonged absent or repeated tardiness without satisfactory reason may be grounds for disciplinary action. And then there's a little bit more language in the procedures below that about tardiness.
What's your question, Tori?
I guess my question is, what we've said about it in policy around tardiness. So that's what I was looking for. And when was this policy?
It was done in May of 15.
Okay.
Last.
All right. Well, I'll bring this one back. I'll reformulate my question at a different time. How about that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So anything else for next agenda? Okie dokie. Upcoming important dates, budget meetings that we've just pretty sure on November 30th, December 7th, December 14th. If we need it, December 21st, and then January 4th, January 11th. Other upcoming important dates, parent-teacher conferences, November 21st. No school, November 22nd through 25th. Dollars for Scholars train show, December 3rd. Fun.
Give me
And
some
then
scholarships.
Yeah, right. Dollars for Scholars. And then our next regular board meeting will be December 14th, and then again in January 11th.
Got it.
Okay. I will accept a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Excellent.
All righty. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Thanks, everybody.